Sir, request you stay with us. We're also joined by Mr. Marjan Neman of the TMC. Very good morning to you, sir. So now there are more details about the modus operandi of the PFI, the fact that the members were being trained about how to make bombs. The question also remains that was there a lot of sympathy for PFI which led to the late ban of this? It was only banned September of last year. Do you believe it should have been banned earlier?
Well, I am told that the investigating team has been able to lay down their hands onto several circumstantial and other pieces of evidence which constitutes a charge sheet which has been filed before the trial court about the alleged preparation for striking terror in Maharashtra or any part of the country. Well, definitely this is a very sensitive matter, where the investigators are expected to do their job to the best of their ability and make a strong case. See, PFI being a banned organization, certainly those who are conducting any activity under the name of PFI are liable to be punished according to the provisions of law, and also for any terror act, because we have a UAPA Act which is quite stringent, under which or other laws which certainly deal with situations like this. But then this is mere investigation. Let us hold on. Let the trial take place. Let the evidence, emerge. And then it is thereafter that we can conclusively say that yes, X, Y, Z as an individual or as a group of some organization or a banned organization is guilty of crime.
Sir, so as of now, you're telling us that the evidence that has been uncovered by the ATS, the evidence that they put in the charge sheet is actually circumstantial?
No, ATS, you see, may do a good job. I don't want to discourage our agencies which may be successfully uncovering any such hidden agenda of causing a disturbance in the society, whether in the state of Maharashtra or elsewhere. And definitely, they would do well if they collect authentic evidence to the satisfaction of the court. Then ultimately, it is the court that will be deciding whether the evidence is believable, whether the persons who are brought before the court with accusations of such serious nature have in fact committed the crime and they deserve to be punished sternly.
Okay, sir, so let the courts decide. Absolutely right. They will determine whether that evidence is adequate, circumstantial or substantial. Thank you very much for joining us, sir, this morning. Also would like to thank Mr. Vikram Singh for joining us with his views. Going back to my colleague Yesha, who brought us this news break. Okay, we're actually joined by Mr. Amit Malviya as well of the BJP. Very good morning to you, sir. So we're talking about the contents of that charge sheet that we've accessed, part 2 of the ATS charge sheet. Very concerning that Maharashtra was actually being contemplated as the base for the terror activities.
Well, Maharashtra was just the base, but the operations were spread across several states of the country, including Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Kerala, Karnataka. And several instances of instigations were witnessed, whether it was Karnataka or the several arrests that were made in Bihar or the land grab that is going on in Jharkhand and parts of Madhya Pradesh in the tribal belt. It was all part of PFI's agenda to establish an Islamic state in India by 2047. And this charge sheet put up by the ATS in Maharashtra only goes on to corroborate everything that's been in the public domain. And the modus operandi of the PFI. And let's not forget, there were very eminent people in the Congress party and the other so-called secular parties that endorsed the PFI and its activities. No less than the former Vice President Hamid Ansari was a frequent visitor to events hosted by the PFI, and Hamid Ansari was very close to Sonia Gandhi. So it really clearly tells you where this entire plot was connected to, who were the people behind it, who were the people who were patronizing it. And this charge sheet raises several questions on the political front also, more particularly Congress and the other so-called secular parties, and what they were fomenting in the name of PFI, in the name of secularism, in the name of minority appeasement.
Well, Amit, I was speaking to Mr. Majid Memon earlier this morning, just a few minutes ago, and he was saying, let the courts decide about this particular evidence that's been uncovered. He said, let the court decide whether PFI is culpable, whether they should be held responsible. But do you believe that with the courts declaring the PFI as a banned organization in September already, this only bolsters the case and that there is not much else left to prove?
Well, PFI is right now a banned organization in the country, and the request for ban came from several organizations. So when people like Mr. Menon, who's now a member of the Trinamool Congress, speaks about the court deciding whether the PFI was in the right or the wrong, he comes across as somebody who's a sympathizer, and that is really the problem with India's so-called secular politics, that we refuse to look the terror in its eye, we refuse to look at these inimical elements in their eye and call them for what they are.
Mr. Malviya there, BJP spokesperson, thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the morning broadcast with your views. Going back to my colleague Yesha now, who brought us all these details. Yesha, also want to talk about the global linkages mentioned in that chart sheet. Earlier when I was talking to former DGP Vikram Singh, he was talking about the linkages to ISI, but also now some connections to the fact that PFI activists and members also went on to join the Islamic State.
That's right. In fact, we saw that DGP Vikram mentioned about how this international connections were linked, and this is very much mentioned in the chart sheet of PFI, wherein they have said that they would be getting funds for all these arms training. Now, this arms training, of course, requires funds, and the chart sheet clearly mentions that they'd be getting funds from international organizations. Apart from that, it also mentioned that there'll be several Islamic states who would be contributing towards PFI, and this funding would then be used for training of these youngsters who were in fact being asked to join the PFI cadre. Now, let us understand how the entire system of PFI works. PFI, in fact, is a breakthrough of SIMI. SIMI was also banned by the central government and the court earlier in the 2000s, following which the youngsters who were then part of SIMI formed the PFI. Now, the modus operandi was to reach out to youngsters and youngsters in colleges and universities in order to ensure that they can be brought into the fold of PFI. Here, when we talk about PFI as an organization, there are several youngsters who are a part of this, and even their family members were given certain literature so that they would be assured that it is the Indian government which is in fact not working in their favor. What we understand from the chart sheet as well is that it was constantly hammered to them that there were atrocities committed against these Muslim families by the Indian government. There was in fact a list of population across all these states, like we discussed earlier. Why was Mumbai the base? What about the other states? So in that context, let us understand that the literature that ATS has received from mobile phones and other electronic data of these accused also has a list of all the 28 states, the population in all these states of Muslims, as well as the mosques that are over there. So the idea was to reach out to these mosques, the religious leaders there, the imams there, and to propagate through them about how these youngsters should be in the PFI cadre. It would be through prayers as well as gatherings that take place in the community, that leaders of the community would reach out to these youth. They would pass on the message of PFI. And this was how they were trying to reach to this 2047 model that we're talking about ever since yesterday. The 2047 model was to ensure that these PFI cadres are in fact in the government, and through them, then a Shariat law would be put in place. Instead of Indian constitution, Shariat law would be in place, and all the teachings that we speak about, teachings of our freedom fighters and everything that's gone into constitution would in fact be wiped off. This was the entire modus operandi of PFI. And funding that we talk about, of course, we've seen that the Zakat funds as well as the other funds which have been used by people like Zakir Naik earlier as well. These are collected from community and then later on passed on to organizations like PFI, wherein training such as making bombs as well as that of other arms training is conducted. Yes.
Thank you very much, Yesha, for bringing us that news break. This is part 2 of the ATS chart sheet that Yesha was telling us.